Speaking about Englishmen and people who drink, I know you're primarily known for southern parts, but you've actually understudied Richard Burton on, I think, more than one occasion.
I didn't I understudied Richard in Camelot, and people think that I understudied him in Hamlet, but I didn't. I played Laertes in Hamlet, and I guess I was his understudy. Yes, I did. I understudied him in Private Lives.
With Elizabeth Taylor.
That's right. And I was playing Victor Preen, which is the worst role ever written, that Noel Crowd wrote specifically for Laurence Olivier, and insisted that he play it. And I know that Olivier must have suffered under that, but it was and I suffered during that play, and there was a lot of drinking going on there. There was a lot of drinking going on all the time around Richard. Particularly in Camelot, but people don't. People who, at least I was on stage with Richard as probably more than anybody, and only on one occasion did I ever see him drink more than he should have in terms of doing a good performance, and he was sick at the time. He'd been taking medication.
Did you ever have to go on for him in Camelot?
Yes, I went on for him 4 times. It was the first time he'd ever had an understudy go on for him. Richard was extremely powerful and strong, and he couldn't stand the idea of anybody going on for him. But he and I remained friends after that. But
and you went on opposite Julie Andrews. That must have been something.
That was lovely, wonderful, wonderful. She's a tremendous performer, and she had a lot to put up with in that company, but and a lot to put up with from what I hear, in My Fair Lady. But she sailed through it and came out of it a great star.
Now, when you first did Shenandoah, I think that was in the early 70s. That was right on.
That's for 74.
That was right on the heels of the Vietnam War, a very unpopular war. We're in the midst of another unpopular war. Has anyone approached you, or have you heard about an unusual number of revivals of the show, say even in colleges or around the country?
Well, I'm a little old and long in the tooth, although I could play it. I was too young when I played it the first time. I actually was 44, and I had 7 kids and a grandchildren. So I could still play it, but not in the same way that I did then. And I hadn't thought about. I have thought about it many times over the years. I did a revival after about 10 years.
You were a little older then. Did you take a different approach to the role? I mean, just not so much physically, but based on the experiences that you had since then, since the original production.
It was a Canadian company, and it was a very good company, and they brought it down here, and I took over and played it, and I did it very much like I'd done it the first time, but it was very interesting because 10 years had elapsed. We were in the middle of the Vietnamese situation, and there was a lot of people. There were a lot of people. No matter if you were a hawk, you thought that this show was talking about defending and fighting for your rights, and if you were a dove, they thought that you were a person who was against the war. So it was a mixed bag. But 10 years later, and we got mixed reviews. And 10 years later, when we came back, the play was exactly the same, and we got marvelous reviews. The same critics came back and saw it and said, I don't know, they didn't know what had happened, but they thought it had changed. It hadn't changed. Times had changed. It would be an interesting play to do now.
So you could do you could go do the first half hour of August Osage County, do a quick concert version, and then get back and do the curtain call.
That's right. If I were doing another show, I think I would come back and do the curtain call.
Cynthia Nixon did that, you know.
There's been talk about me. I'm supposed to do another play in January, and I've kind of put out feelers to see if they'd let me, if they'd start the play at 8:15 rather than 8, because we start at 7:30. It's a play called Heroes. It's an adaptation of a French playwright by this Tom Stoppard. It's being done in a small theater, and it would be fun to do two shows at the same time. That would be fun. I'd like to do that.
Now, I know you've done your share of television and movies, 1776 notably, but what was it about Northern exposure that lured you out to Hollywood?
Well, there was I really don't know. Northern exposure was a kind of a snuck up on me in a way. I didn't expect to get it. They taped an audition for me in New York, and I forgot about it. And then next thing I knew, I was in California, and they asked me to come and meet with somebody. And I saw the other people that I was up against, and some of them were huge, big guys, and they were, one I remembered was an old movie, a cowboy movie star. And I thought, well, they're going in a different. And another one was a guy that I knew very well. He played my brother in The Trip Back Down, and they were burly and big and tough looking. And I figured that's the way they were going. And so I kind of horsed around a little bit in the audition and played for the humor. And then I got a call that afternoon, and the next thing I knew, we were doing 5 episodes during the summer. And it was a wonderful, wonderful bunch of people, and a kooky, wonderful show, and a great place to do it in Seattle. And it just all clicked together, and it was 4 years of delightful work. 4.5 years. It was 5 seasons, and then it was over and gone. But it was a wonderful experience.
It's certainly one of the most original shows that they've ever done on television. Now, after that, you were telling me you were itching to get back to Broadway. Did you? Now that you were nationally known, I mean, certainly you had been known in theater circles. Now you were a national quote-unquote celebrity. Did you notice any change in the attitude, either by the Broadway people or by your audience?
Oh, yeah. There's a big change. There are 3 different John Cullums. Now, when I went out there to do Northern Exposure, they had no idea who I was. And I remember the third or fourth episode. There was an occasion when they were supposed to play music from Broadway hits, the title songs, and one of them was On a Clear Day. And I told one of the fellow actors, if they play the title song from that show, it's me singing that song. And they had no idea that I was even in musicals at all. So when I came back and got into Showboat was what I think I told you about Showboat. I expected to be in a big musical where I'd sing a lot, and I got into Showboat, and Captain Annie doesn't sing a lick, but it was fun anyway. It was a big musical, but it's no question that when you have that exposability that you get from TV, that you're much more desirable as a Broadway actor, and but a lot of people, it's strange, people think of me as Hollington Coor. When they come to see me, they're surprised, but they recognize me as Hollington Coor, and that surprises me a little bit. But
everything else that you've done over 40, 50 years.
Yeah, well, they don't know about that. All of that stuff, Fame is fleeting, and I can tell you it is. It just doesn't last forever. And that's okay, because time goes on.